Ms. Tin.
Thank you, Ministers, for the reply. I fully agree that any insult to religions, especially in Singapore, is unacceptable. I'd just like to ask whether the political nature of the cartoons in the publication has got any part to play in the decision. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I thank Ms. Tin for her supplementary question. Political cartoons are not in themselves the problem. Some are already in circulation. It is very clear that Red Lines was disallowed for its offensive religious content. I've spoken about it. Mr. Masagos has further elaborated on why these are of great concern in our multicultural, multi-religious context. In my earlier reply, I had also said that IMDA have in the past, in the last 5 years, deemed 6 other publications to be objectionable for denigrating various religious communities. Now, none of them were about politics either. They either contained offensive and prejudicial comments about other religions or espoused polemical religious teachings which were likely to cause ill will and hatred amongst the different religious groups in Singapore. Red Lines is objectionable for similar reasons. Thank you.
Mr. Zulkifli.
Mr. Speaker, I thank both ministers for the clarifications. I think any words, images that are offensive to any religion is hurtful, and the hurt remains. I have 2 supplementary questions for Minister Masagos. Given that the contents in such publications can be replicated or duplicated and made viral in today's context, what can any members of the public, whether Muslim or otherwise, do to report or express their concerns to MUIS, especially if they feel that certain publications or images would be offensive to any particular group? My second question is on the Undesirable Publications Act. The definition of publication as objectionable is within the context of enmity or hatred between different races or different religion. The question is, what about publications that may create hostility within the Muslim community itself? Would MUIS play a role in the determination of such publications being offensive? And I would be grateful for such clarifications. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize for keeping my mask on earlier. I've obviously become so used to it. Mr. Zaganian's questions are very important, and let me address the first part of it first, and I think Minister Masagos would probably like to supplement. Social media platforms have terms of service, community standards, as well as feedback mechanisms for users to flag or report inappropriate content. And IMDA certainly expects them to adhere to their very own standards strictly. But in addition, when IMDA is alerted to the existence of websites that glorify, incite, or endorse ethnic, racial, or religious hatred, strife, or intolerance, it may deem such content as prohibited material under the Broadcasting Act's Internet Code of Practice. Local content providers can be required to take down the content. IMDA can also direct internet service providers in Singapore to block access to such websites. In 2020, not so long ago, there was, in fact, a Facebook post by the NUS Atheist Society that was highly offensive to both Muslims and Christians. IMDA assessed that the post contains prohibited content on the grounds of national harmony and is in the clear breach of the Internet Code of Practice. IMDA issued a request to Facebook to remove the post, and Facebook subsequently blocked it from access by users in Singapore. And so that stand is very clear and also very consistent. To Mr. Zul's other question regarding the role of MUIS, IMDA seeks the views of relevant agencies before making its decision on content that could affect religious harmony. And this is inclusive of content that may compare different religions or within the same religion have different views. In the case of red lines and other content related to Islam, IMDA did and continues to seek the views of MUIS.
Mr. Speaker, Islam puts the love of our Prophet at the highest plane among men. So you would expect Muslims to react when the Prophet's dignity is scorned or when he is ridiculed. Now, while Muslims are rightfully indignant at any derogatory remarks or insults made of the Prophet, but we must nonetheless be guided by our prophetic principles of compassion, graciousness, and magnanimity. I say this because the Prophet himself faced this when he was alive. In fact, once when a group of men prayed publicly for death and calamity to befall him, Aisha, his wife, wanted to do the same thing, to pray for death and calamity for the same people who did pray that on the Prophet. The Prophet stopped her and counseled her that Allah, our God, is gentle and He loves gentleness. So I call upon fellow Muslims to follow what our religion teaches us, to conduct ourselves in the most exemplary way, even when we are rightfully hurt and indignant by the act put against our religion or our Prophet. Let us live by our laws, because we can, and where there are such religions that can incite or endorse ethnic, racial, or religious hatred, strife, or intolerance, we will prevent them from happening and from such literatures from being published and distributed in Singapore. As mentioned by my colleague, Minister Josephine Teo, members of the public who have concerns on a particular content in publications should inform MD, whether it is of one religion to another, a person's against another religion, or even within the religion or their community. MD will always seek input from the relevant agency before it makes its decision on content regulation. In this example, MD had consulted MCCY and MUIS if the Islamic content involved was indeed derogatory, insulting, and hurtful. And they did so. So we hope that while we are indignant, we know that the content yet to be distributed are hurtful, derogatory to our religion, to our Prophet. I counsel ourselves, my fellow Muslims in my community, to behave and conduct in the most exemplary way.